I knew something was rotting in the fluorescent guts of that office the moment Doug called me in and didn't even offer me a chair. Just stood there behind his desk, fiddling with his Fitbit like he was tracking how fast he could gut 20 years of my life. We're reallocating your office, he said, like it was a damn parking space. Brittany will be moving in, effective today. No thank you. No, you've been the backbone of this company since dial-up. Just that slimy HR smile that says we already printed the memo, so don't make this awkward. Brittany, with an I. The same Brittany who once asked me if our quarterly reports were like real legal documents or just internal vibes. The same Brittany who thought Capex was a new Pilates machine. Now she was getting my corner office with the working window and the maple desk I'd fought to ever finished after that intern spilled kombucha all over it during the great snack reorg of 2016. Be a team player, Doug added, like I was some locker room has been getting benched by a TikTok cheerleader with a clipboard. Help her get settled. Show her the ropes. Ropes? The only ropes I wanted to show Brittany were the metaphorical ones she could hang her career with. But I smiled, nodded, took the hit like a pro, then turned on my heel and walked out, straight into the open plan bullpen where half the office suddenly got very interested in their keyboards. Here's the part they don't tell you in corporate training. Getting demoted in silence hurts worse than being fired. Fired means you mattered enough to be dangerous. Demoted, you're just driftwood now. And folks, before I keep going, I gotta say this. If you're one of the 97% listening to stories like mine, without hitting subscribe, please do. It's free, it helps keep stories like this coming, and frankly, watching that little number tick up is the only thing keeping the team from stress-eating the Office M and Miss So Go Ahead. Hit that button. We'll wait. Now, back to our regularly scheduled soul-crushing. I spent the rest of that morning packing up my space, my real estate, my home, into cardboard boxes that once held toner refills. Brittany stood in the doorway like a human poodle, all glossed lips and confused authority, chewing gum like she was auditioning for bad soap. Hey Han, she said, Han, as if I was her aunt at a state fair. Do you know how to get the Bluetooth to work in here? Doug said you'd like totally hook me up. No, Brittany. But I do know how to install a fire suppression system using only Red Bull and sarcasm. I swallowed every bit of my rage and pointed at the manual on the shelf, third binder from the left, labeled Office Tech Setup. I know because I built that damn shelf system. Every binder, every color-coded tab, every carefully printed label laminated in triplicate. She giggled, called it cute. Cute. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just finished sealing my last box, labeled it with the brittle elegance of a woman too old for passive aggression, but too smart for open war, and wheeled it out to the shared cubicle I'd been reassigned to. A literal broom closet of a desk next to the break room, where the smell of reheated salmon and career regret lingers in the drywall. That's when Doug walked by again, this time with a clipboard and the soft, predatory enthusiasm of a man who thinks giving you busy work is the same as giving you dignity. Marlene, he said, I do have something meaningful for your final week. We're doing a full archive cleanup. Lease docs, property files, expense approvals. Thought you could help us get it all in order before you go. He said it like a favor. Like scrubbing history clean was a gift. I just nodded, because I've learned that some wars are better won in silence. I took the assignment, walked past Brittany lighting a lavender candle in my office, and headed straight for the archive room in the basement. Cold, dusty, forgotten, just like me, but that's where the real stories live. In paper, in signatures, in ink that doesn't forget. And I was about to find one hell of a story. By Tuesday, my old office smelled like a Yankee Candle factory had rear-ended eclairs. Brittany had already replaced my desk lamp with a pink Himalayan salt rock that doubled as her emotional support crystal, and swapped my ergonomic chair for a white faux fur monstrosity that looked like it had been taxidermied on TikTok. I stood in the doorway for one full breath, just to witness the carnage. Lavender votives flickering beside framed selfies, a plush throw pillow embroidered with Boss Babe, and Doug, my boss of 20 years, standing in the corner laughing like a drunk dad at a bar mitzvah. Oh my God, D, Brittany squealed. You have to sit in the fuzzy chair. It's like being hugged by serotonin. D, she called him D. I swear something in my spinal column cracked sideways when I heard that. Like a tiny vertebrae whispering, this is your villain origin story. I turned away before either of them could see the look on my face, some mutant blend of shock, nausea, and the kind of dead-eyed amusement only a woman who's been corporate roadkill before can feel. My new desk, if you could call it that, was wedged between the refrigerator and the office supply cabinet. Every time someone grabbed a Diet Coke or bumped into the shelf for a Sharpie, my monitor wobbled like it was on a damn cruise ship. I kept a box of tissues near the keyboard, not for crying, but to clean the splashes of someone's reheated chili every afternoon. Coworkers, they ghosted me like I had the HR plague. Even Janice from compliance, who once cried in my arms after her dog died, wouldn't make eye contact in the hallway. I'd become radioactive, untouchable, proof that tenure didn't mean jack if you didn't wear stilettos and fake laugh at Doug's jokes about golf. So I did what any betrayed workhorse would do. I went full automaton. Archives, folders, paper cuts, and paper trails. Every lease file in that dusty hell room got labeled, scanned, logged. I didn't miss a single line. My brain moved like a spreadsheet algorithm with a grudge, but my eyes, they were on the office. I noticed things. How Brittany's mail started arriving in padded envelopes marked confidential. How Doug always locked the office door between 2:15 and 2:45 p.m. And how the intern who used to bring me coffee now ran triple shot lattes to Brittany with a post-it labeled for Queen Bee. I saw all of it, but I didn't react. That's how you lose. You react, they win. Then, Thursday afternoon, something shifted. I was heading upstairs to drop off a box of completed files when I passed the copy room and heard Brittany on the phone. She wasn't using her usual sugar voice either. This was her feral whisper, the kind people use when they know they're toe deep in something messy. I told them it's a maintenance issue, she hissed. No, Doug said to just write it off as hospitality expenses. It's not like I signed anything. Ugh, whatever, just send the guy. It smells like mildew again. I didn't stop, didn't look, just kept walking. But my brain hit rewind like a VHS with a vendetta. Mildew, maintenance, hospitality. Three words that don't belong in a sentence unless you're talking about a seedy motel or something much more. Funded. I delivered the files, nodded at HR, and returned to the archive room. But the air felt different now, electric almost. Like the moment right before a thunderstorm when all the birds shut up and the clouds just wait. I had a feeling, a twitch behind my teeth. Something was off. That's when I decided I'd double-check every lease with Doug's name on it. Not because I was hunting for trouble, oh no. I just wanted to do a thorough job. After all, they said this task was meaningful. Time to treat it like a treasure hunt. Let's see what kind of gold the rats leave behind. There's a rhythm to paper, the sound of contracts sliding free from manila sleeves, the crisp, papery breath of staples giving way under a remover's bite. You work enough years in operations, and files become like people. You can feel which ones are hiding something. And on Friday, just after lunch, I heard it. That strange rustle, like guilt trying to stay flat in a folder it didn't belong in. The cost code caught my eye first, 4589XH, Client Transitional Hospitality. A mouthful of nothing. We didn't use that one anymore. Not since 2017, when finance did a cleanup and anything with transitional got flagged for audit. So why was I looking at a lease renewed this past March, 6 months ago, using a deprecated expense code? I opened the folder. Inside, a full lease agreement signed and initialed by one Douglas E. Whitman, my boss. The lease was for top floor unit at the Marquee at Pine and Vine, a building so upscale their valet wears cufflinks and refers to tenants as residents, not renters. 2 bedrooms, marble everything. Monthly rent just shy of $5,000. Billed directly to the company with the same generic memo. Client interface continuity housing. Yeah, and I'm the Queen of Norway. But it was the address that really punched me in the stomach. Unit 1702. I remembered that number, clear as day. Brittany had mentioned it to the intern in the elevator 2 weeks back while I stood behind her, invisible. It's like the best view ever. And the bathtub? Girl. I could drown a bad mood in that tub. I just stood there at the time, clutching my sad little thermos of Earl Grey, pretending not to exist. But now, I was holding the paper proof that her bathtub of healing was being paid for with company funds, under a cost code buried so deep even the accountants wouldn't find it unless they knew where to look. I didn't smile. I didn't gasp. I just sat back in the cracked office chair, Lease in my lap, and stared at it, long and hard, like it might blink first. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was something deeper, older, like a muscle memory from a past life where women like me were burned for noticing the wrong things. I'd spent my entire career watching men like Doug get promotions for mediocrity and bonuses for cover-ups. This wasn't new. What was new was that they thought I was gone already. I didn't make a scene, didn't storm his office or slap the lease on Brittany's fuzzy chair. That's not how you win. That's how you get labeled bitter, hysterical, emotional. No, I was going to do this my way, the Marlene way. I quietly slipped out of the archive room and walked to the second floor copy machine, the only one in the building that didn't log user IDs since the firmware update never got finished. I made 2 copies of the lease, one for safekeeping, one for compliance. Then I returned to the archive room and placed the original back in its folder, right where it had been, untouched as if I'd never seen it. But oh, I'd seen it. And now I couldn't unsee what I knew. Doug wasn't just sleazy, he was stupid. They'd poked the wrong wasp nest. And I wasn't about to sting him. No, that would be too kind. I was going to let the hive collapse on its own. Let the truth rot its way through the walls and floorboards until there was nothing left but paperwork and panic. This wasn't revenge. It was closure served chilled, with the side of plausible deniability. I spent the entire weekend in quiet meditation, by which I mean I drank boxed wine and watched true crime reruns until my cat started judging me. But when Monday rolled around, I put on my best slacks, tied my hair into the kind of low bun that screams unbothered executioner, and got to work like it was just another ordinary day of scanning the skeletons in Doug's filing cabinet. The thing about paper trails is, don't lie, people do, emails vanish. Conversations get reworded, but paper, that stuff ages like courtroom evidence, and I had a golden relic right in my hands, the lease. Unit 1702, fully signed, fully renewed under company funds, with Doug's greasy little initials looped in the margins like some corporate Picasso. It practically whispered, blackmail me, but I wasn't after blackmail. That would require contact, negotiation, risk. No. I wanted fallout, pure, undiluted consequence. And if there's one person guaranteed to bring scorched earth fury to a situation, it's a rich suburban wife smelling betrayal on her restoration hardware rug. So I did what every diligent employee is expected to do. I finished compiling the week's archive batch. All the scan leases, old and new, copies labeled, forms filed. But when I got to the final step, prepping the submission folder for accounting, I slid in everything except the original copy of the Marquee apartment lease. That one got special treatment. I printed one last hard copy, crisp, unmarked. Then I slipped it into one of those thick, cream-colored company envelopes we usually reserved for vendor contracts and anniversary cards. I sealed it like a love letter to karma, wrote Mr. Douglas E. Whitman across the front in neat block letters, and addressed it to his home in Westerville. Same house he bragged about during the company barbecue last summer while showing photos of his koi pond and vintage grill setup. No return address. No name, no note, just the truth, wrapped up like a gift. And before anyone could catch me lingering, I walked it out to the outgoing mail bin by reception. Not the courier box, not the legal tray. Just the simple white bin marked standard mail, where things go to be sorted, stamped, and set free. I stood there for half a second watching the envelope nestled between office supply orders and some HR brochures about mental health in the workplace. Then I dropped it. Thunk, gone, no flourish, no slow motion, just the quiet violence of an administrative act. I didn't need fireworks. I had the US, Postal Service, and a prayer. As I walked back down the hallway, the tension didn't tighten, it unraveled. Slowly, deliciously, like undoing a corset after a long day of pretending not to feel rage. Each step felt lighter, my heels clicking like punctuation marks in a memo nobody saw coming. Because now it was in motion. No confrontation, no emails to trace, just ink and implication. Let the envelope speak. Let the ink do the talking. And let Doug's perfect little koi pond life flip belly up the moment his wife opened the mail and found out what client hospitality really meant. The room smelled like off-brand air freshener and career amnesia. Two beige chairs, one clipboard, and an HR rep who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Her name was Elise, or maybe Elaine. I didn't care. She had the look of someone who kept a gratitude journal but forgot to be grateful out loud. So, she said, skimming whatever per-written script was stapled to her lap. On behalf of the company, I want to thank you for your contributions over the past 21 years. 22, I corrected, not looking up. She blinked. Right, 22. There was no cake, no slideshow, no awkward speech about how I shaped the culture. Just Elise reading from a checklist like she was prepping me for cremation. Did you feel supported in your role? Any unresolved grievances you'd like to share? I stared at her like she'd asked me to list my favorite infections. Nope, I said. All clear. She nodded, almost relieved. Okay, great. Well, we'll process your final paycheck by Friday, and you'll receive a link to our alumni network. Ah yes, the alumni network. The digital graveyard where former employees share awkward life updates and job listings like divorced cousins at family reunion. I slid a tiny envelope across the table. Inside, my exit documents and a coupon for a smoothie place that went bankrupt last year. I stood, pulled the lanyard over my head, and dropped my badge into the little thank you basket on her desk. It clinked against a few others already buried at the bottom. One of them still had a smiley face sticker on it. I hope whoever it belonged to is somewhere drinking tequila and flipping off the skyline. Doug didn't show up, of course. Too busy, I assumed, or too cowardly. Either way, I didn't miss him. Brittany did, though. As I walked out, she leaned against the doorframe like a cartoon villain's sidekick, sipping a green juice and trying to look unbothered. Bye, Han, she sing-songed. Thanks for, setting me up with everything. You're like such a rock star. I gave her a polite nod. Didn't stop, didn't speak. Because queens don't snarl at jesters, they just ride out on silence. The elevator was empty. Fitting. I watched the floors count down, each ding erasing another scar from that building's drywall memory of me. When the doors opened to the lobby, I stepped into the sun like a woman being reborn into a universe that finally stopped asking her to take notes. And then I turned left, like I always did on bad days, and walked straight to the little cafe on the corner, Mailbox Coffee. Hole-in-the-wall place with crooked art and stiff foam lattes. It had two things going for it, no corporate loyalty posters and a view of the office's front entrance. I ordered a tall latte. No syrup, no smiles, just hot, bitter fuel. Then I took my favorite seat by the window, unzipped the tiny leather journal I'd carried in my tote for years, and flipped it open to a fresh page. The cover said observations, but really it was a ledger. Quiet reckoning of moments people thought I'd forgotten. I wrote one word, delivered. Then I sipped my coffee. Some endings don't need applause, just a clean break and a front row seat for what comes next. I was halfway through my second cinnamon scone when my phone buzzed, one of those little, persistent hums that knows it's carrying something juicy. I glanced down, expecting a spam text or a promotional email offering me 15% off slacks I didn't need. instead, was from Lacey. Lacey, who hadn't texted me in 6 months. Not since she quietly cried in the elevator after getting passed over for that strategic alignment promotion Doug gave to a guy who once called PowerPoint that slideshow thingy. Her message was short, clipped, but pulsing with caffeine-fueled gossip adrenaline. Did you hear? Doug's wife called in a lawyer. Something about misappropriation? I reread it 3 times. Once with confusion, twice with delight. Well, I thought. Looks like the envelope made it past the koi pond. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That would make me part of the loop. And I had no interest in being part of anything anymore. Instead, I took another sip of my latte and tapped over to my inbox. I wasn't expecting anything, just muscle memory. But buried halfway down in the Updates tab was a forwarded thread with the subject line, Urgent, lease code 4589XH. Clarification needed immediately from an HR assistant I didn't know. Forwarded by accident, I assume from someone I did, Brian, the finance guy with the ulcer and the breath mints. Doug's personal Gmail was CC'd. Not his work email, his personal one. You don't do that unless you're panicking. I opened the thread, scanned fast. Phrases jumped out like cockroaches under a kitchen light. Did legal approve this housing arrangement? Was the board aware of this discretionary expense? Need to identify who had signing authority on this renewal. Wife's counsel has formally requested documentation. Possible IRS exposure if role was misrepresented. I sat back in the cafe chair, phone resting in my palm like a loaded slingshot. Doug's name was all over the email chain, highlighted, circled, copied, and panic-pasted. Somewhere between the finance director's frantic questions and HR's vague deflections, it became clear they had no idea where the lease copy came from. Even better, no one was owning up to having sent it. Good. The best trap is the one that springs silently with no one to blame except the rat for stepping in it. The whole thing smelled like fear and fax toner. The email thread ended with a classic doogism. Let's discuss offline. Need to contain this. I chuckled. Contain this. As if it were a puddle. As if his wife's divorce attorney didn't just light the whole damn office carpet on fire. I closed the thread, deleted the message, and powered the phone down completely. No screenshots, no breadcrumbs, no need to reply to Lacey. No need to chime in with oops or thoughts and prayers. The wheels were in motion. And I wasn't behind them, I was watching from a safe distance, warm pastry in hand, like a commuter who just barely missed a bus that exploded 2 blocks later. I leaned back in the cafe chair, sunlight warming my collarbones, and let the chaos ride on without me. There's a freedom in being forgotten, until you're the only thing anyone can talk about. By Wednesday morning, the building was hemorrhaging decorum. The receptionist stopped saying good morning. HR's door was shut tighter than a banker's conscience. And someone, possibly Janice from compliance, taken to muttering, well, this is above my pay grade every time the copier jammed, which was often. I wasn't there, of course. But gossip moves faster than Outlook. And thanks to a certain junior staffer with a conscience and a VPN, I had a front row seat to the show without ever leaving my cafe. He messaged me through an encrypted app. We once used to coordinate a surprise retirement party for an IT guy who turned out to be embezzling office supplies. Irony wasn't lost on me. It's chaos, he typed. Doug's wife has lawyers crawling all over accounting. She's demanding a full valuation of everything, side perks, expense cards, company housing. Even the holiday bonuses are under scrutiny. I sipped my cappuccino, perks, off-book benefits. The little lies that pile up like mold under corporate wallpaper. It was all unraveling, and the best part? No one knew where to tug to stop it, because there was no tug. Just drift. Doug, of course, was now working remotely, which we all know is HR code for drinking bourbon at noon and fielding frantic calls from legal. And Brittany, gone. No sick note. No mental health day, just silence. Like she'd slipped into witness protection or maybe just didn't want to face the hallway glances anymore. Rumors bloomed like mildew. She was crying in the stairwell. She got sent home for optics. She told someone in marketing. Wasn't even my idea. I let the junior staffer keep typing. Let him spill the nervous energy like someone unloading groceries in the rain. When he finally asked, do you know anything about this? I replied with the digital equivalent of a shrug. Heard whispers. Nothing concrete. Take care of yourself. Then I logged out. Not because I felt guilty, but because the moment was here, the one I'd been circling since I found that lease. The moment I pressed send on something I'd prepared weeks ago, long before I dropped the envelope in Doug's mailbox. An anonymous upload. One single PDF. Titled, Code 4589XH, Documented Misuse Pattern, Q1, Q3, no signature. No breadcrumbs. Just a clean, quiet upload to the company's internal whistleblower portal. Set up during that brief post-#MeToo panic window when the board swore transparency was a core value. I watched the upload bar fill. 47 pages. Scanned evidence, timeline, excerpts from receipts, a trail of fingerprints without a single name attached. Then I deleted my work email. Permanently. No backup, no forwarding address. The account vanished like a ghost evaporating at sunrise. I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't an employee. I wasn't a threat. I was something worse. A footnote no one paid attention to until the appendix became the ending. The clouds rolled in that morning like they'd been scheduled to match the mood. Low and gray, thick with the kind of energy that makes people lock their car doors a little faster. I arrived at the cafe just past 9, ordered my usual croissant, twice baked, thank you very much, and claimed my usual table by the window. It didn't take long. By 9:17, black sedans started nosing into the parking lot like sharks. By 9:23, the regional counsel from Boston stepped out of one, stiff suit, tighter jaw. By 9:31, two junior partners walked in without their usual banter, eyes down, phones clenched like prayer beads. Emergency board meeting. You could practically feel the urgency leaking out of the revolving door every time it spun. Word had gotten out. Apparently someone, everyone was asking what exactly Brittany's job description had been. Because if she wasn't an official client rep, then the company had paid for her luxury apartment under a false claim, which, in the eyes of the IRS and any competent auditor, translated to housing-related tax fraud. Oops. The phrase I heard, according to my favorite little bird still on the inside, was systemic liability. That's when the investors started sniffing the air like wolves catching the scent of rot. And once money gets nervous, things move fast. One of the senior partners, Sharon, I believe, started gently raising the idea of new leadership optics, which is rich, considering Sharon once spent 40 grand of company funds on wellness seminars that mostly consisted of goat yoga and branded hoodies. But still, she smelled blood, and Doug was leaking credibility by the gallon. Inside that boardroom, I imagined legal showing slides. The lease, the cost code, the uploaded PDF from the anonymous whistleblower, maybe even a timeline color-coded for dramatic effect. Someone probably tried to spin it. Doug probably said something like this was an isolated oversight, but outside the narrative was already set. And at 10:06 a.m., I saw it. Doug, my former boss, the man who once said I was too operational to lead, came storming out of the building, red in the face, suit jacket half on, yelling into his phone like someone just canceled his entire personality. He paused at the curb, tried to open the door of a waiting car, fumbled, dropped his phone, swore, and then stood there frozen, as if realizing the ground had shifted and no one was offering him a hand up. I didn't gloat. I didn't even lift my latte, just broke my croissant in half and let the flakes fall onto the wax paper like ash. He didn't see me, of course. No one ever really sees the woman they buried under processed documentation and birthday card spreadsheets, not until she turns out to be the architect of their public unraveling. I sat quietly, watching him recede into the gray morning like a failed product launch. Peace, it turns out, doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes it comes with carbs and a window seat. The headlines didn't mention names, but I knew the story was mine. Tech firm executive under scrutiny for misuse of corporate housing funds. Below it, phrases like spousal financial discovery, unauthorized benefits, and the ever-glorious federal inquiry into expense abuse. Doug's wife hadn't just lawyered up, she'd weaponized her wedding ring and gone straight for the jugular. Filed a full discovery request through the divorce court, pulling every company ledger that ever even hinted at the word perk. That meant bonuses, fringe benefits, expense accounts, and yes, discretionary housing. Brittany didn't stand a chance. She was subpoenaed 2 days later, showed up in business casual in a panic sweat, claiming she was a freelance consultant with a flexible retainer. The court asked for contracts. She had none. The IRS took an interest. They always do. Once the scent of untaxed income wafts through their inboxes. Word spread internally that Doug had stepped down to focus on personal matters. Classic PR spin for the board, handed him a box and a non-disclosure agreement the size of War and Peace. He's probably already trying to line up a podcast or consulting gig, but every Google search of his name now shows the same headline in bold: corporate funds misused in executive secret affair. I kept quiet, stayed in my lane, my cafe, my window seat. I let the city move around me like white noise, horns, footsteps, the low hum of a world that never asked where I went when I left. And then about a month later it arrived. No postmark, no return address, just a small envelope slipped beneath my apartment door. Inside, a note card, handwritten, careful strokes, smelled faintly of bergamot and old ambition. You were always better than how they treated you. Thank you, signed with a simple first initial. One of the board members, I'd wager. Someone who watched it all from behind the curtain and finally found their voice too late. I didn't cry, didn't smile. Just folded the card and tucked it into the back of my leather journal, right next to the word I'd written weeks earlier, delivered. Then I opened my laptop, typed 5 words into the search bar, start your own consulting firm, hit enter. And there it was. 1,000 paths forward. Mine now, all mine. I flagged one article, ordered a second coffee, and leaned back in my chair, watching the building across the street where it all began. Smaller now, grayer, like a relic of someone else's story. Because the difference between revenge and justice, one sets fire, the other rebuilds. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.